So if you guys have looked through my new channel or have watched my old one or go through my socials, you guys know that I am a Silver the Hedgehog fanatic. And a lot of people love Silver the Hedgehog. And there's one thing that we all have in common. We all say that Silver doesn't get enough recognition in the Sonic series. Now you could say that other characters haven't gotten a lot of attention, such as Team Chaotix, Blaze the Cat, etc. But recently, in 2024, I've been seeing a lot of people begging for Silver to be a main character in the Sonic series once again, to the point where they want a game all about Silver, or him to have his own campaign, like in Sonic Generations and stuff like that. Like, 2024 seemed to be the year where all the Silver fans have risen, myself included, and even going into 2025, people are still begging for Silver. I've only been into the Sonic series for about 3 years, and it's crazy how how many people have actually been begging for Silver to return in the Sonic series. Now you may think, oh, he's included in Sonic games, he's with Sonic and his friends, which he is, but is he a main character, or does he have a main role, as I should say? No, he doesn't have a main role in the games like he did in Sonic 06, which I don't think he's had a main role since Sonic 06, if we're being honest. Like, he's been included in other games outside of Sonic 06, but 06 may just be the game that he has an actual main role, which I'm going to be going over the games that Silver has been included in, his role in the IDW comics, and what we could possibly do to make it a year of Silver, or at least include him in the franchise, because I don't know if they'll actually give Silver his year like Shadow, but all we can do is wait and see. So as everybody may know, Silver was introduced in one of the worst Sonic games ever made, being the infamous 2006 game, Sonic 06. Sonic 06 is often criticized for its long load times, its glitches, its controls, and its story that has a bunch of plot holes and doesn't make a lot of sense. The game was the way it was simply because Sega rushed it out for the 15th anniversary, and they wanted this to be the next best Sonic game. They wanted it to be like a new take on Sonic, like a reboot, but it failed because they rushed the game. Had they delayed the game, it probably could have been the best game ever, but let's save Sonic 06 for its own video. So, Silver was going to be the next new character for the next new Sonic game. They decided to make another Hedgehog character and made him with psychic powers, being psychokinesis. They wanted to have like a new character with new abilities and stuff, and Silver had a lot of potential, and they wanted Silver to be the next best character and stuff. Of course, this flopped because of the failure of Sonic 06, and a lot of people say that Sonic 06 basically ruined Silver's chances of being like a main character, or like getting a good game or something like that, because mainly people will associate Silver with Sonic 06, which that shouldn't be the case. They shouldn't just hate Silver because he was introduced in the worst game ever. I don't hate Silver being introduced in the worst game ever. I've had my frustrations with 06. I don't want to say I absolutely hate 06, because I've had my likes and dislikes with the game, and I've had my frustration, but replaying it is not so bad once you get used to it, which, once again, I'll save it for the Sonic 06 video. So Silver's story in Sonic 06 is that he comes from 200 years from the future, which is after Sonic and Friends' time, though I like to imagine that Shadow's the only one in Sonic's main timeline to appear in Silver's future, because he's immortal, and also it's implied in Sonic 06 because it's described about how society turned on him, hence why he was locked up by Omega. But anyways, it's described in the opening to Silver's story about how the world was devastated before he was even born, and that everybody lives in a place where it's harsh, bleak, and they live in eternal darkness, because the whole entire city, Crisis City is the name of the city in this game, Crisis City was destroyed by the monster Iblis, which is one of the 3 villains in Sonic 06, and how he constantly has to fight off Iblis to make his future great and stuff. And you can see throughout the game, there are various boss fights with Iblis from all the characters, and Silver fights him off at the beginning and the end of his campaign. So it's mainly described about he's a time traveler who comes from the future and stuff, but we don't really know anything more outside of that. We don't know how his life was like in the future or anything like that. though it could be implied that he probably had like a pretty harsh life in the future and stuff, because it's described about how people live without hope and all that kind of stuff. And Blaze appears in his future, though I like to theorize she comes from the Soul Dimension to help him out in the future. I'm coming up with so many theories in this video, and I'm kind of sidetracking it here. But anyways, his main role is he comes from the future. He's constantly fighting off Iblis and thinks it won't end. And he's like, how can we destroy Iblis? And this is where his story comes from, because Mephiles manipulates Silver to kill Sonic because he believes that is the Iblis trigger. Because Mephiles describes about how, like, he basically manipulates Silver into thinking that Sonic is the Iblis trigger, the one responsible for his destroyed timeline in the future. And Silver believes this because he wants to just fix his future, make sure everything's great and stuff like that. I had someone ask me in the comments in like one of my videos, either my old channel or my new one, ask if Silver was a villain. And Silver is technically not a villain. He's not a villain. He's just a character fighting off for a better future. And the only reason he'd come off as a villain was because he was manipulated by Mephiles, who is basically the main villain of Sonic 06, to go after Sonic, kill him, and he believes that's going to make his future great, because the one who caused the destroyed future would be gone. So this is where his whole story starts. He goes back into the past, into Sonic's timeline, to go and find him so that he can get rid of him, so that his future is no longer ruined. And the first time he goes into the past, you can see that he's absolutely, like, he's impressed by the way that that timeline looks. He's amazed about how he sees blue skies and, like, green grass and all that stuff, because he appears, like, in the Soliana Forest, like, when he first time travels there, because, like, all the characters are basically separated when they all time traveled. Like, they're all in different places, and then it would eventually lead up to nighttime, where after the whole entire Festival of the Sun, Eggman destroying it, and Sonic escaping with Elise, he talks about how he finally found the Iblis trigger, though he's sidetracked because Amy mistakes him to be Sonic, similar to what she did with Shadow in Sonic Adventure 2, and this catches him off guard, and he says about how he got away and stuff, and Amy does not know that Silver is specifically looking for Sonic. He's just saying he's looking for someone, so they go off to try to find the Iblis trigger, or find the one he's looking for. I don't think he says Iblis trigger in the game, like, to Amy. I can't really remember. I haven't watched the cutscenes to 06 like in like a long time. But they go off to find Sonic, and of course you have Sonic and Silver's first encounter, and this boss fight became a meme because of this line said here.
It's no use!
This is another thing that people will associate with Silver, his infamous "it's no use" line. Like, that line has become a huge internet meme simply because it's repeated so many times throughout the boss fight to where you could, like, it's impossible to forget once you hear it, like, so many times, myself included, because when you battle against Silver with Sonic or with Shadow, because you also fight him off with Shadow later on in Radical Train, you'll constantly hear Silver say it's no use if he catches you with his psychic powers before saying, "Take this!" and throwing you against the wall. And it's no use is probably a meme to this very day. I still bring it up to this day. It's pretty funny, honestly. But that's the only other thing that they'll talk about when it comes to Silver, his infamous line, which still admittedly is pretty funny. So after his first encounter with Sonic, he's about to go after him and kill him, but Amy stops him, and she talks about how if I had to choose between the world and Sonic, I would choose Sonic. And then she goes off, and then Silver comes to the realization that maybe getting rid of Sonic is not the right thing to do. Like, he changes his way of thinking throughout the course of the story. Even questioning to Blaze, to, like, he's like, to kill someone to save the world, is this really the right thing to do? I'm like paraphrasing this, but it's making him question his actions, like, after that first encounter. Though still over the course of the story, he tries to catch up to Sonic and battle him once again before he's stopped by Shadow, and the two of them end up fighting off each other as Sonic goes off to rescue Elise once again for like the third or the fourth time. And after battling Shadow, you get, of course, another thing people will remember about 06, the roundhouse kick in the back of the head, when Silver's about to try to finish off Shadow, and then Shadow uses Chaos Control to slow him down and then kicks him in the back of the head. So after the fact, Silver mentions about how he won't give up and it all depends on him, possibly implying it all depends on him to go save his future, and how he won't lose, and not when he's so close to trying to find Sonic to get rid of him once and for all. So he continues to battle off with Shadow, which I must mention that he mistakenly thinks that Shadow is Mephiles because they both look the same, because Mephiles used Shadow to take on an actual physical form. And the two of them battle, and they both induce the Chaos Control because they have the Chaos Emeralds when they try, like, beating each other up. And Shadow mentions to Silver about how Mephiles is not trying to make a better future, but rather trying to eliminate the past, because Mephiles just wants to merge with Iblis so they become Solaris and take over all the timelines and take over the whole entire world. And Shadow mentions about how, in order to see what happened, they must see what took place 10 years ago during the Solaris Project. So Shadow and Silver travel 10 years back into the past to see what happened during the Solaris Project. So the brief overview of the Solaris Project is that the Duke of Soliana, who is the late father to Princess Elise, was trying to do these experiments with Solaris to try to use Solaris to travel through time so he could see his wife again, who is the mother of Princess Elise. And basically it's implied that, like, Elise's mom died before the events of 06 and died when she was a child, and the Duke wanted to do these wanted to do this program so that he would be able to see his wife again and Elise see her mom again. This all takes place 10 years ago, and at the time Elise is 7 years old, as in the current timeline in the present in Sonic 06 she is 17. So the Duke tries running all these experiments on Solaris. It backfires, causes a huge explosion in the aquatic base it takes place in, and it separates Solaris into Mephiles and Iblis. And Shadow pursues Mephiles, Silver pursues Iblis, and Shadow seals Mephiles in the Scepter of Darkness, and Silver, with the help of the Duke of Soliana, seals Iblis inside Princess Elise, a young Princess Elise. Because this all happens when young Elise is unconscious, as during the whole entire explosion, before the explosion happens, the Duke protects Elise from the whole entire explosion. And Iblis is sealed inside a young Princess Elise and is told not to cry or else the flames of disaster will be released. So then after the fact, both Shadow and Silver go back to their timeline, and before Silver goes back to the present where, like, Shadow is, he leaves behind the blue Chaos Emerald with a young Princess Elise, saying it's a lucky charm, hence why Elise has the blue Chaos Emerald 10 years later. Like, it's a huge, confusing story, but, like, I will go over the whole entire story when it comes to my 06 review. So he goes back into the current time, not his future, but the current time he was previously in, and he eventually decides to go team up with Sonic and stuff so that he can stop the egg carrier from exploding and causing Elise to die, releasing the flames of disaster in his future. And he teams up with Sonic. Of course, they could not make it to the egg carrier in time, so, like, Silver makes the decision saying that if Sonic returns to an earlier point in time, he may be able to save Elise, which is what he does. He goes like further back into the past before the egg carrier explodes to save Princess Elise, and then Silver decides to go back into his timeline with Blaze and then take out Iblis once and for all. So Silver goes back into his timeline with Blaze. His timeline is still destroyed, it's still ruined, and he fights off Iblis for the very last time in the final battle of his campaign and decides he will seal Iblis within him. Though, of course, he is not successful in doing so and doesn't understand why. And Blaze decides to seal Iblis inside her because she has a soul that's lit with flame. And Blaze basically makes this big sacrifice in the end, as she either dies or gets sent back to the soul dimension. I'm not sure. I'm just going to imagine that she gets sent back to her dimension, the soul dimension where she comes from. And Silver cares about Blaze, and he's like, you can't do this. And Blaze sacrifices herself, and she disappears, and Silver's timeline goes back to normal. You can see all the blue skies and stuff like that. It's no longer ruined, and of course, Silver is sad about this. So that was his main story in Sonic 06. I haven't even brought up the last story yet. Now, the whole entire story of Sonic 06, it all takes place at the same time, except from different characters' point of views. From like Sonic, Shadow, and Silver, it all comes from their points of views and their own individual stories, and they all appear together in the last. So in the last story, Silver appears with the rest of the characters after all the timelines are being consumed by Solaris because Mephiles killed Sonic, Elise cried, Iblis was released, Mephiles merged with Iblis to become Solaris, and Solaris is consuming all the timelines and it's the end of the world. And of course Sonic is dead, and all the characters have to find all the Chaos Emeralds to revive Sonic. And after they collect all the Chaos Emeralds and revive Sonic, Sonic, Shadow, and Silver all turn into their super forms, and this is the very first appearance of Super Silver, by the way. They turn super and they battle off Solaris, and the boss fight is so epic, and one of my favorite lines, "I will protect the future," comes from this game. So after they defeat Solaris, the whole day is saved, and this is the last appearance of Silver in this game. Like, we don't know what happened after the fact because all the events were erased from the timeline. Because after Sonic and Elise go back to the point where Solaris was just a small flame, Elise is encouraged to blow the flame out so that they don't have to worry about the flames of disaster and stuff like that, but the cost being that all the events that just happened won't be canon, including her friendship with Sonic. Though Sonic encourages her to blow out the flame, which she does, and it basically undoes the entirety of Sonic 06. It makes this game not canon. It makes the whole game not canon. You erased everything from the timeline, so it makes it feel like you just did the whole game for nothing, which I don't think it was technically for nothing, and there's still the implication that Sonic and Elise may remember each other, but I think that's just up to the viewer to decide. But that's Silver's role in 06, and his main role was just erased from existence. It was just erased from the timeline entirely. Now, 06 wasn't the only appearance of Silver the Hedgehog. He was reintroduced in the 2006 game, Sonic Rivals. Yes, Rivals came out the year that 06 did. I think it was maybe like a few weeks or even a month after 06 came out that Rivals came out. Which I must mention that I know nothing about Rivals plot, other than the fact that it reintroduces Silver, and this would be Silver's first canonical encounter with Sonic, meaning he encounters Sonic basically for the actual real first time, because Sonic 06 was erased from the timeline, and none of the characters remember each other. Sonic doesn't remember Silver, Silver doesn't remember Sonic, all the characters have deja vu and they don't remember the events. Which is why this would be the first canonical appearance of Silver the Hedgehog, since 06 is not canon, basically. And I'm just going to assume that eventually Silver works together with Sonic, and they still work together to this very day in later Sonic media. So he eventually teams up with all Sonic and friends. So I don't know much about Rivals 1, but I know a bit about Rivals 2. I honestly wish I had Rivals 2 just so I could play this team. Yeah, this would be the first appearance of them working together. Not just IDW, which we'll get into IDW later on in this video, but he appears in Rivals 2 as well, with the main story being that Ifrit is from the future. With Ifrit, he appears to look like Iblis in a way. Now, again, this is just off of what I looked into. I have no knowledge on Rivals 2 whatsoever, so I'm kind of a newbie when it comes to it. But, like, Ifrit's from the, appears in his future, and Ifrit is attacking all the Chow. So Silver goes back into Sonic's timeline to save all the Chow, and Team Chaotix, the Chaotix, are doing this case where they're wondering where all the missing Chow went, and SBO mistakes that Silver's taking all the Chow, and after learning about what his true intentions were, both of them work together. Yeah, this was the first instance of them working together in the Sonic series. 2007's Rivals 2, which Rivals 2 would only come out I think a year after the original Rivals. So he appears in Sonic 06, he appears in Rivals. What are other games that he appears in? Not counting the party mode in Secret Rings or his alternate night self in Sonic and the Black Knight, there isn't really that many other games that he's appeared in. He appears in Sonic Generations, which, now remembering, I think he appears in the DS version of Sonic Colors, but yeah, I know nothing about that either. He appears in Generations, including its remake in 2024, though he's not a playable character. You can play against him as Sonic. Sonic has this rival boss with him in Generations and its remake, battling him off in Crisis City and stuff. And this goes to show how much strength that Silver has, carrying a whole entire ball of debris of like traffic lights and street signs and a whole bunch of random junk from probably the buildings. But of course he gets crushed by that. Poor Silver. So he appears in Generations, and I don't think he would really appear as like a main role until 2017's Sonic Forces. Because we had the gap in time that after Generations came out, we had all the Nintendo exclusive games, such as Lost World, Boom Rise of Lyric, stuff like that. And the next game I think he would be in would be Sonic Forces, and he's not even a playable character either. And I see people criticize about how he didn't take out Infinite and he basically forgot about his powers of what he was capable of doing, and saying that this game mischaracterizes him. So he appears in Forces, not really a big role. He appears in Team Sonic Racing, which he attributes to the plot. I know a little bit of the plot of that. And he's going to appear in Sonic Cross Worlds when that comes out, and I intend on playing it as him. He appears in some of the other spin-off games, and I think that's it. There isn't really a whole lot of games of him being a main playable character. And like racing games and games like the Olympic series do not count. Like, I'm talking about main ones like Sonic 06. Like, there aren't any really main ones outside of 06, or if you want to include Rivals, which I don't even know if Rivals is even a spin-off game. So that just goes to show that he isn't included in too many games. Like, he's not playable in too many games, and he doesn't have like a main role that like contributes to the story whatsoever. So many are saying about how Silver should get his own game, such as maybe him have his own individual game all about him, or maybe him have his own campaign like Shadow Generations did, because Shadow had his whole campaign in the Sonic Generations remake, which is why it's called Sonic Shadow Generations, because they're two different like campaigns, two different stories. Though I don't think a Silver Generations would work, simply because he hasn't appeared in a whole lot of games, and you wouldn't have a whole lot of bosses or levels or anything like that if you really think about it. Because it was only a few days ago I was thinking about it, I'm like, Silver Generations honestly would not work out. Like, I don't want to sound like I doubt it, but I don't think it would work because you don't have that many levels you could use. Because if you think about it, all the stuff that appears in 06 is erased from the timeline, unless you want to include the other stuff in like white space and stuff, because heck, Mephiles appeared in Shadow's campaign, even though he was erased from the timeline. But with Silver, he wouldn't, like, I couldn't think off the top of my head what bosses he'd be able to fight off outside the ones in 06, and I don't even know if Rivals had bosses. They probably did. Again, I don't know about those. And the racing games didn't have bosses. It was just about them racing cars and stuff like that. The level roster I'd have no idea about, because most of the levels he appears in, like Sonic 06 was, again, were also erased. Yet Kingdom Valley and Crisis City appear in the other campaigns. But I really can't think off the top of my head what they could include in a Silver Generations, which is why a game all about Silver would probably work out much better, because they could probably expand more on his backstory. Like, they could make a whole entirely new story for Silver. Like, they could make it a whole brand new one. Heck, Shadow got his own video game, even though it wasn't successful, and that one became infamous as well for the use of, like, firearms and him saying damn all the time. But I feel like maybe an actual spin-off Silver game would actually work out. Alright, before we move on to the next part of this video, another thing I should mention that people remember Silver the Hedgehog for is his amazing theme song, Dreams of an Absolution. I cannot get over how much I love that song. I just love it so much. I will go back and replay different sections of the song about every single day. And the part of the song that I replay the most is the "'cause every night I will save your life and every night I will be with you" part. Like, I love it a lot. And I recommend you guys check out the song. I'll put a link to it in the description below. And there are also other remixes of the song that exist, other remixes that have been released, such as the LB vs. JOS remix, Starry Night remix. There was a version of the song released in 2011. There are different versions of this song. Like, it's just so amazing. Like, Like, the versions of the song I've listened to, they all sound pretty good. And they all have the same lyrics, except they have, like, different, like, instrumentals and stuff. It's just so amazing. Like, I love it so much. And one thing I like to point out is how a portion of the song, the "and I might know of our future, but then you still control the past" part, sounds like the Green Hill Zone tune. Like, if you listen to it. And once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. Heck, you can go and listen to, like, the Green Hill Zone theme song and compare it to it, and it sounds about the same. If you listen to the Green Hill, like, rendition in the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 trailer, people have pointed out it sounds like the "and I might know of our future" part. And the funny thing is it was not even intentional. It was by complete accident. It was not intended by the writer of the song, and they later became aware of the resemblance. Like, I think it's just so funny about how you can now hear Green Hill Zone in the song. And once you hear it, you're not going to unhear it. And also, Dreams of an Absolution is a 10 out of 10 song, and I recommend you check it out. Alright, now that I've gone over his role in the games, let's talk about Silver's role in the comics. Now, Archie Silver will not be included in this video, I'm sorry, but I have not read anything regarding Archie Silver whatsoever, but I'm sure other people have talked about Archie Silver, so I recommend you check any of those videos out. So I'm going to be going over IDW Silver. Now, IDW Silver, I see people either love him or hate him. He's kind of mixed in between when it comes to people in the fandom. Like, some people say they love the interpretation of IDW Silver, while others say it completely mischaracterizes him. What it's specifically called is canon versus fanon. So canon versus fanon when it comes to characters is how canon refers to how they're portrayed in the games and stuff, what people consider to be canon to the series, while fanon refers to fan interpretations of the character, which there is, of course, canon and fanon when it comes to Silver, where many will describe his canon being that he's very serious, he can be pretty intense. In the case of the Rivals games, sometimes rude, like when he calls Tails like half pint or something like that, or tells characters to get out of the way or something. Like I've looked over that stuff when it comes to Rivals. While with Fanon Silver, this lands in the category of IDW Silver because they'll talk about how he's more optimistic, soft, sweet, all that, and what people like to call like a dork, or what people like to nickname him, Cinnamon Roll. So do I like Canon Silver more or Fanon Silver more? When it comes to me, I feel like I lean more towards Fanon more than I do with Canon. Now, I do not take issue with Canon Silver whatsoever. I feel like both of the traits that he has in both the games and IDW can both exist at the same time, because when it comes to the way that the characters are portrayed in the series itself, people are kind of divided on it, saying that Sonic is either being too serious or not taking things seriously. But I feel like you can have like a balance of both of them, and there isn't really a problem with either of them, because from games in the Dark Age, such as 06 and stuff like that, you had Sonic be like more serious, and with newer games, what people would describe as the meta era of games in the 2010s, having Sonic have all these forced one-liners and making jokes of everything, and when they try to take things seriously in Sonic Forces, they fail at it because it's still pushing the comedy thing way too much. Which I feel like you can have like both of them. I can see what people say about like some things being more serious and silly with others. I'm aware of like the difference with both of them, but I like both of them equally. I feel like you can have both of them. Like, I think stuff like the early adventure games has a mix of both, because with Sonic Adventure 2, it was serious, but you also had those one-liners that Sonic had, like those iconic lines he has. And I feel like you can have both of them at the same time. Now, I feel like I'm not one to hate anything when it comes to Sonic, it seems, but maybe that's mainly because I didn't like live through the Dark Age of Sonic or the mid-era of the 2010s and stuff like that, like all the other lifelong fans have, as I've only been in the series for 3 years currently. So that's why I feel like I've almost felt like I've picked and choose what I liked. And people who have like grown up through like the Dark Age of Sonic, who lived through the Dark Age, like Canon Silver more than they do with Fanon, because they're used to that. Like, that's probably why. And then people who just recently get into the series like Fanon Silver. Like, that's why there's a divide when it comes to the Sonic fandom. Not everybody in the Sonic fandom likes the same thing. And this just is just all opinion-wise. This is all just my opinion about what I like and stuff. Like, you guys can like what you like and stuff. Do not go at anybody and do not go at me in the comments, please. But with IDW Silver, I don't really have a problem with him. I love the way that he's portrayed. So with his role in IDW, it's about the same as his video game counterpart. He's still from 200 years in the future. He still goes back to the past to help Sonic and friends, like, save the world and stuff. And then that affects his future, and he'll make a great future. Like, the Metal Virus arc is the best example of this, and I recently finished the Metal Virus arc, where you have the characters fighting off the metal virus that Eggman caused with Dr. Starline, and they're fighting to save the world, and it's implied that in Silver's timeline it's completely destroyed, and he's in the past with Sonic trying to make his future better. Like, anytime he goes back to the past will affect his future. Like, that's the whole concept when it comes to time travelers in media. So, in the Metal Virus arc, he works together with Sonic to finally take out the Metal Virus after so much. Like, the characters, I must say this, like, I could describe this in a whole separate video, but the characters are going through a lot in the Metal Virus arc. They are going through so much. Like, so much is happening. You have characters fighting off the Metal Virus, characters that have it, characters that are going through loss. Like, there is just so much going on here in this arc. It's just so complex, and there's just a whole lot. So, Silver is not one affected by the Metal Virus. Sonic is a little bit. He's trying to just run to just, like, get rid of the virus, even though it doesn't go away entirely. But over the course of the stories, you have all the characters collect all the Chaos Emeralds from the Deadly Six who want to go back at Eggman for him betraying them and stuff. Like, there is just so much stuff that goes on here. And eventually, when they collect all the Chaos Emeralds, Sonic and Silver turn Super, and this is the first appearance of Super Silver in 14 years. 14 years after Sonic 06 came out, we got Super Silver again. Funny in hindsight, like, it's kind of funny about how, like, the Metal Virus would portray what would happen in the 2020s if you think about it. But anyways, Super Sonic and Super Silver finally get rid of the Metal Virus once and for all. Now, I haven't even read all the way through the other stuff yet. Like, I've been attempting to try to read these in order. A few of them I skip ahead. But, like, I oftentimes just try to keep it in order. But after the fact, when, like, Silver goes back to his future is perfectly fine. And this is in Recovery Part 1, which is, like, 30 issues into IDW. And he talks about how they made a great future. Now, there would be a huge 2-year gap from when he appears from then until he appears in the annual 2022 with the story that I have previously mentioned on my previous channel, which I will go over again for the sake of this video. So Silver's role is basically the same from what it was in the games. Like, he still takes things seriously, he still gets the job done, he still is determined to save his future. It's not like it's completely gone. But you also have the silly little moments that he has, which has never been shown in his character before, which is probably why people talk about him being mischaracterized, is because they never did that. Like, that's probably why people hate on it. Like, I would kind of feel kind of mixed on what side I would lean on, but I eventually came to, like, think that I can still like IDW Silver because it still has a mix of both, in my opinion at least. Like, I don't think they completely get rid of him being serious entirely, because they include also little funny moments to balance it out. Like, I think it's like a good balance between the two. And the silly, cute moments that Silver has in IDW have led to a lot of my favorite panels that come from IDW. Like, I have a lot of favorites. Like, I have a lot of favorite panels when it comes to Silver in IDW. And I'll show these ones on screen as a couple of my favorites. So, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to show the serious and the silly moments of IDW Silver. Now, is this just an excuse to show these off? In a way, but I just felt like I wanted to show them off in the books because why not? Like, take a look at these pages here. Like, here it's like you can see Silver working together with Sonic to take down Metal Sonic. Like, he's doing what he needs to do. Like, he's being serious here. Here's the first issue he appears in, IDW number 8, where he's working together with Sonic to take down all the robots. Like, that's him being serious. It's not like he's never serious. I still don't get why people say he's not being serious. Alright, so here are some moments that people like to associate with Fan and Silver. Like, any moments like this, like him being happy and like all these goofy expressions. Like, I love these expressions in IDW. I love them so much. And like, I don't even have a problem with this at all. I don't even take issue with it. Like, this looks quite cute. I love these so much. Like, I have so many different, like, Silver profiles. It's not even funny. I've used so many images of these as my profiles on YouTube and stuff. Like, I love this here. You got him referring to Whisper as the guardian angel. Like, it's just so funny. Like, he can have those funny moments. Like, it doesn't take away from him getting the job done or protecting his future. Like, he's still the same character he always is. Like, here's the moment he's working together with Sonic to save the world from the metal virus. Like, he's doing what he needs to do because he's determined to save the future. And after the fact, after they battle off the Zeddy, because I forgot they battle off the Deadly Six after the fact, Silver goes back to his future and sees that it's perfectly restored. It's back to normal. And he mentions, Sonic, everyone, thank you. We made a good future. Showing that he did accomplish something. And he still does what he needs to do. Like, you have both serious and silly Silver at the same time. Like, I like those moments where Silver can have time off when he doesn't attend to his future or doesn't have to save anything at the moment. We get a few of these moments, such as annual stories or even like one-shot stories like Spring Broken. Like, I like little moments of Silver where he's not always being so serious all the time and having to save the day and stuff, such as Victory Garden from the annual 2019, which Victory Garden will have its own video, but the brief overview of it is how he's attempting to make a garden, but is not doing a very good job at it, and he needs help from Blaze to make this garden because the soil's not good because it was where a bunch of bombs were, and Blaze uses her powers to make the soil good, and they work together to make the garden, and it looks great. Like, there's just like smaller moments in between. Like, you can have small moments where the characters don't always have to save the day. They don't always have to be serious 24/7. So Silver is often portrayed as being determined to save the future, always saving the day, because I believe his main routine is his future is destroyed, he goes to Sonic's timeline, does what he needs to do to fix his current timeline, goes back to the future, sees it's restored, and it's probably just a repetitive cycle. Now, when he's not attending to saving the future, this could make him a little bit paranoid. Now, this is the part of the video where I can say that Silver is a relatable character, because there are a few instances where it appears that Silver is struggling with anxiety. Now, this isn't only brought up in the annual 2022, which is going to be the thing I talk about in a little bit, but it's also briefly alluded to in Team Sonic Racing. Now, when I first looked into it, I'm like, yeah, Silver's struggling with anxiety, but then another time I looked into it, I'm like, he's right that something bad is going to happen because something bad does happen. Because you get this cutscene in the game where, like, he has this conversation with Sonic, and Silver's like, you ever have this feeling like, and Sonic doesn't seem to understand how Silver, like, feels. Not that he doesn't care about him, but he just doesn't understand, and Sonic's mainly focused on the race and stuff, and then Silver's like, right, winning. Like, I will show the cutscene on screen here.
Hey, Silver, you look a little down. Thinking about how badly I'm gonna beat you in the next race?
What? Oh, no. I'm thinking about something else.
Come on, man, get your head in the game. I'm totally gonna make you look silly out there. You wanna win, right?
Right, yeah. Okay. Winning. You ever have one of those feelings? Like
you're about to get your car fed to you by a blue hedgehog? No, never.
And this could imply that Silver does feel some sort of anxiety. You also have this exchange he has with Blaze talking about how, like, Silver feels that something bad is coming, which is, but, like, he's always, like, focused on that. Like when he's not intending to save in the future, it can kind of make him, like, bothered and stuff. Like, he doesn't really, like, I'd like to say that he doesn't really seem to, like, feel it's normal for him to not attend to saving the future, if you know what I mean. It doesn't feel normal that he doesn't have to do it all the time, because he's probably so used to doing it that it feels out of the ordinary. So, Silver's anxiety is explained more in the IDW Annual 2022 story, Future Growth. Now, I cannot get over how much I love the story, and it's so relatable to me. Like, I love it so much, and I still mention it to this very day. Like, ever since I found it, I've like fallen in love with this story. Like, I love it so much. And I've previously made a video talking about future growth, but for the sake of my new viewers and for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be going over the story once again. Alright, so in this story, all the characters are doing a harvest in Silver's garden. And this is the same garden that appears in the annual 2019 story, Victory Garden. It's the same exact garden, and all the characters are all picking vegetables and stuff, but Silver does not look too happy, and he is not enthusiastic about doing it. Like, he looks like he's down, like something's bothering him, which there is, which we will get into that later on in the story. And Sonic catches him off guard, and this is what I mean by what I say about how much I love the panels of Silver and IDW. Catches him off guard, asking if he's done picking the tomatoes, and here Silver's like surprised. And Amy comes by saying that she's thanking Silver for coming all this way to do the harvest. He's like, yep, that's exactly why I'm here, even though that is not the case. That is not the case at all. He's just hiding something. But Amy gets sidetracked because Tangle's messing around with the vegetables and stuff. Some of the other characters are fooling around. And this leaves Silver on his own once again. And he looks down. It looks like something's bothering him. And the characters don't seem to take notice. Not that his, like, friends don't care, but they kind of just overlook it. Like, Sonic overlooks it. Amy overlooks it. Like, Silver has something to hide. Like, you can tell. So, he's feeling down, and nobody seems to take notice. Well, except for one. Yeah, this is another instance of these two characters, together. Since 15 years after Sonic Rivals 2. So, Silver goes off into the woods by himself, and he kind of has that moment of relief by himself, like, or he feels down because he sighs, and SBO catches him off guard, and he's like, hello, Silver, and Silver's like, huh? And then he mentions about how something's bothering Silver, and that Silver is troubled, but Silver's like, Silver is like, troubled? No way, SBO, you know me. Always on a mission, important future person things to do. He tries denying that anything's wrong. He's trying to cover it up, which he's not successful in doing because SBO mentions that he's not good at lying. And then Silver is aware and he's like, yeah, I know. And Silver eventually opens up about how he feels, saying that he's not in the path to do the harvest and doesn't even know why he's there in the first place. Like, he doesn't know why he's there at all. And, like, SBO mentions about how, do any of us know why you're here? And then Silver's like, I do. And then he's like, I mean, I usually do. And now you get to the moment where he feels quite anxious, where he mentions about how every time he gets sent back to the past, it's usually to save his future. And he always knows what he needs to do, and it's his job and his purpose. And he doesn't need to do anything at the moment. He's like, this time he has, like, nothing to do. Like, there's no crisis in his future, and things are okay in Sonic's timeline. Like, everything's okay, but he's not okay. Like, he doesn't feel alright. It's like something's bothering him, and you can tell, like, through the illustrations of this about how he feels. Like, I love the colors in this story so much. You can see here he's feeling quite anxious. Like, this is really getting to him. And, like, now you get to the moment where I can say, this is the most relatable moment in the entire story, where Silver freaks out, he's overthinking, he's spiraling about why he was in the past, and he's like, did I do something wrong? Am I missing something? And even goes to the extent of what if thinking, something that we have all done, myself included. And he's like, what if some disaster hits tomorrow? And, like, he's pacing back and forth. Like, he's like, it's implied that he's pacing back and forth. I honestly wish this was animated. I would love to see an animated version of this. Like, you can see he's pacing back and forth, saying all these things, and when he says, what if some disaster hits tomorrow, and SBO cuts him off, this is so that Silver is not, like, overthinking way too much, like, getting way too heightened, and, like, SBO, like, he cuts him off, he stops him, and he's like, Silver, take a breath. And you have this nice moment with the two characters, like these two characters, like taking a moment to breathe, to take a deep breath. And here you got Silver breathing in. I love this face so much. It's one of my absolute favorite panels of Silver and IDW. So, like, hold on. Here you got him breathe in, cute squinty face, breathe in slow and steady, and then he breathes out, and here you can see few written in the background representing Silver breathing out. The contrast between the two characters, Silver being absolutely heightened with anxiety, meanwhile SBO being absolutely composed. Like, there's the contrast between the two characters. I love, like, this moment. Like, these three panels here are just, this is, like, the most relatable moment of the entire story here. So, after Silver calms down, SBO gives him a pep talk, talking about how he can't let his fears consume him, or else he's never going to get through anything. Because, like, he talks about how danger could be anywhere and be waiting around everywhere, and says that, like, if he allows his fears to consume him, his enemies would have already won without having to do anything. Talking about if you let fear consume you, you're not going to get through anything. That's what the whole entire message is in this. And you can still see Silver is still a little bit anxious, like him clutching his arm, anxiety-wise here. And Silver asks how you fight the fear. And SBO mentions about he doesn't only need to have faith in himself, but his, like, faith in his friends. Basically talking about how he doesn't have to do it all by himself, and he has his friends by his side, and that there will always be people to support you. And SBO encourages him to go back and do the harvest, go back to his garden, and, like, enjoy himself because he deserves it, which Silver deserves a break, like, from all the stuff he goes through. Like, all these characters go through so much, and you also have these small little moments where it's like, slow down. Like, they're nice little moments. And Silver mentions about how he still feels afraid, but knows he doesn't have to deal with it alone. And he mentions about how, like, he mentions how he's still scared, but he knows he's not alone, and how his friends make him feel like he can do anything. Like, he's given confidence to, like, push through his fear. Like, he's given that confidence and reassurance from one of his friends. Like, this is why I adore the story so much. And, of course, you got this nice, sweet little moment, him thanking SBO, and SBO being completely shocked at it, not expecting Silver to hug him. And, of course, they have to go back to the garden because Charmy's messing around, and Silver marks if SBO needs help, and then SBO's like, please. And that's the end of the story. It's a nice little moment talking about how, like, Silver has, like, these anxieties about the future and stuff, and he doesn't know what's gonna happen, and it's basically that fear of the unknown. Like, we've all feared the unknown probably at one point. Like, it's so relatable because I myself deal with anxiety and all that. Like, I deal with that. And, like, this is, like, I, like, adore this so much, and this is what I mean by Silver being a relatable character. And, like, this helps Silver push through. Like, he continues to push through and, like, continues to push on and, like, do what he needs to do and stuff. Like, I love those little moments where there's slow down and stuff. Alright, so this is a brief moment, like a smaller moment here, because I've only read Spring Broken once, but you can also see Silver quite anxious in one moment of Spring Broken, because what happens in Spring Broken is all these characters are at this fest with all these flowers and plants and stuff, and, like, Silver's plant catches on fire for some reason, and then it's this whole entire case of, we gotta figure out who did it, guys. Even though it was rough and tumble at the end, spoiler alert, like, I had that first thought that was gonna be it. But what caught me off guard was when Silver said, I ruined it, I sabotaged it, I'm sorry guys. Like, you get those moments, like, you get these panels of where he looks like he's freaking out, and he looks like he's literally about to have a panic attack there. And he's like, I'm sorry, and, like, it made me legitimately think he sabotaged himself because he didn't feel self-confident. That's what I thought when I, like, first viewed it and looked into this story. But then I eventually figured out that, oh, it was rough and tumble because of a series of events, because Silver puts the plant food in his plant, catches fire. What happened is that Charmy got the plant food and then gave it to Silver. Silver puts it in the plant, rough and tumble, ruined the plant food, Charmy gets it, Charmy gives it to Silver. And then that's what happened to Silver's plant and stuff. It's not really a big mystery, and it's like something we all probably saw coming. But that moment just caught me off guard so much because it almost legitimately made me feel like Silver wasn't confident in himself and sabotaged himself on purpose. Like, it honestly made me think that way. So IDW Silver is a really good character, and he's the same as he is as his video game counterpart. He can be. You just get little moments in between. Like, he's still serious and stuff. And one thing that bothers me with, like, one of the issues of IDW was in 63 and 64, you have this cat named Duo who is Mimic in disguise, who is described in the Tangle and Whisper mini-stories. And Silver's, like, trying to take him out and stuff, and then the characters are thinking that he's not being nice to Duo. Like the characters are so unaware, like, the Diamond Cutters are so unaware, and it was kind of bothering me, especially in 64, when, like, Silver's trying to take him out, and Mimic makes him look bad while being like, he hurt me, or something like that. And, like, I own that one, and then Silver's kicked out of the Diamond Cutters, which makes him feel, like, bad, and he goes off, and then he's sulking in his garden, and of course he gets this moment with Blaze. Like, I was waiting, like, for this issue because of the moment he'd have with Blaze, because I thought it'd be similar to the annual stories he was in, which it kind of was in a way, and heck, like, Future Growth is alluded to when he talks about how Espio gave him advice, and it's also alluded to in Spring Broken about, like, Silver liking gardening. Like, the annual 2022 is getting, like, a lot of mentions in, like, different IDW issues, and, like, I feel like Silver didn't deserve the crap that happened to him in, like, issue 64. It kind of, like, bothered me, and I'm like, the characters are so unaware that Duo is bad. Like, it made me think that way, and Silver did not deserve to get cut out. To get kicked out of the Diamond Cutters. You made him feel bad. He's doing his best. Like, I'm literally defending a cartoon hedgehog here, but he didn't do anything wrong. Like, and this is the way you made him feel. They made him feel this way. Like, they made him feel bad and stuff, but at least he gets this moment with Blaze, and it cheers him up. And Silver did eventually get an apology in issue 76, and being like, you want to, like, team up to take down Mimic, and he's like, yes, and then he's determined. Like, it says determination in IDW. Like, you have both those traits exist there. Like, it's not like they're completely eliminated. I've gone over a lot about Silver the Hedgehog today. Silver is a character who has a lot of potential, but Sega hasn't really done much with him yet, unless you want to count IDW, because I truthfully think that he's, like, getting a lot more attention in IDW than he is in the video games. Like, he doesn't, like, show up in a whole bunch of IDW issues, it appears to be, but when he is, it's like they have a story to tell with him, and he could possibly have his own game one day. Like, maybe make a story about Silver and, like, expand on his character. Like, they could totally do that. Like, I mentioned earlier that they could make a whole entire Silver spin-off game, and it would actually work out. And other things that I would like Silver to be included in is maybe some kind of Sonic show, because if you really think about it and look at all the Sonic shows that have been released over the years, Silver has never been included in a Sonic show. He's never been included in Sonic X, which I see all the fan edits of it, by the way. He's never been included in Sonic Boom, and he's not in Sonic Prime, which I've also seen fan-made stuff with Prime. Me legitimately thinking he was going to be in Prime, but he wasn't. But he's never been in a Sonic show. He's not even in the Sonic movies at the current moment. I'm going to theorize we might get him one day, though. We might get him one day, but if I were to think of maybe a show to include with Silver, I could envision maybe like a show having to do with Sonic IDW, but that might be me just thinking of reanimated IDW stuff, like I mentioned earlier. But I would like to have, like, Silver in a show and stuff, as he never has been in one. And him be included in the Sonic movie cinematic universe. Like, have him be included in the Sonic movies. Like, he never has been. And, like, currently, like, over the course of these 5 years that the Sonic movies have been going, we have yet to see Silver introduced. He might get introduced in a few years, I theorize, because he hasn't been introduced yet, but it doesn't mean he can't be, because even Jeff Fowler is aware of the Silver fans' existence, because there's this clip that I found, like, someone actually sent it to me. Like, there's this clip that someone sent to me that it mentions about how, like, someone mentioned about how their daughter likes Silver a lot, and Jeff Fowler's like, yeah, there's a bunch of Silver fans out there, and we'll keep that in mind. And please use that as your opportunity to put him in the movie universe. Like, I really want him to be included one day. And if he does end up showing up one day, I will be hype. Like, if he ends up showing up in, like, Sonic Movie 4's post-credits or something, or if he even appears in, like, a trailer or something, I will be hype. Like, I would be, like, so, like, excited. Because, unfortunately, with the case with Sonic 3, which I'm just going to mention this simply because I don't think spoilers matter anymore. It was not Silver that appeared at the end of Sonic 3. It was not. And I mean, I knew that because I accidentally found out about Amy's reveal online through a video thumbnail. I did not know about Metal Sonic, though. I didn't know about him. And, like, yes, I stayed after for the second post-credit scene after the long credits. But Silver never appeared, and I was legitimately kind of disappointed because I knew he wasn't going to be. But with what could possibly, like, what's rumored to be in Sonic Movie 4 is the possibility of having time travel elements, which is mainly a thing that's first introduced in Sonic CD. So I don't think it's going to be Silver, but I would like him to be introduced, even if it's like Sonic Movie 4's post-credits, because I would legitimately, like, I would be cheering in that theater. I would be so happy. Like, I wouldn't care if I had to wait until 2029, 2030 to see him on the big screen. Like, that would only be another, like, almost 4 or 5 years, if you really think about it. And by then, I'll be in my dang 20s. I don't know what kind of story they could come up with for Silver in the Sonic movie universe. One idea I had, and a lot of people also had, was how maybe he could mistake Sonic for Metal Sonic, and then eventually he teams up with Sonic to take down Metal Sonic and take down Eggman and stuff, or whoever appears in, like, the fourth one as the main villain, which is probably going to be Metal Sonic. But, like, that idea could work, but with them probably going in the direction of making a CD or a Heroes adaptation, they might make a completely different story for Silver. Whether it's a spin-off or for the main movies, I'm not sure, but please don't miss the opportunity to put Silver in the movie universe. Like, you've included so many other characters, like, the most common characters. They've already included, like, the common 5. Like, sure, Sonic Movie 4 hasn't come out yet, but the next 2 they introduced, like, they're the next 2, like, 2 recognizable characters in the series. Like, you introduced Tails, you introduced Knuckles, you introduced Shadow, who had the most hype in Sonic Movie 3, was the most hyped Sonic movie currently in history in 2024. Then you included Metal Sonic and Amy in Sonic Movie 3's post-credit scene. Well, the first post-credit scene, because there's 2 of them. But, like, I feel like you could include Silver. Like, don't miss your chance. Like, this is the opportunity to include all these different characters. Like, many people are saying they'll expand it to maybe 5 to 6 movies, and I'm just hoping that they will include Silver one day. I am begging. Like, I've even seen other people talk about how they want Silver to have his year just like Shadow. Like, we got so much Shadow content in 2024. Like, we got Shadow Generations, we got the movie, we got a bunch of add-on content, we got Dark Beginnings. Like, we got a whole bunch of stuff, like, revolving around Shadow the Hedgehog, and he's been a fan favorite since 2001, and he was only brought back because the fans loved him so much. Like, he was brought back because of that reason. Like, Silver's often defined, like, being from, like, one of the worst games ever. Silver's rarely used in, like, Sonic games and stuff. So, I feel like they should give Silver, like, another chance at the games, and they should include him more. Like, give him another chance of having the spotlight. Like, I feel like he deserves it. Heck, people have also made, like, little parodies and skits of them wanting Silver to have his year. Like, such as this video, which I watched recently, and that video is pretty good. I recommend you check it out. And yes, I do watch RandomGoonVO's videos. I think they're pretty good. So I hope you guys enjoyed this long video of me talking about the Psychic Hedgehog from the future. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and comment down below if you would like to see Silver get his year like Shadow, or if you would like to see him in a show, the movies, have his own game, etc. Be sure to stay tuned for more videos, and I will see you later.